We've given them their top 20 greatest players of all time. And now we're going to do something akin because we got the trade deadline next Thursday, February 5th. So we are going to do the top 10 best in-season trades. No off-season trades, nothing that happened before the season started. This has to be an in-season trade. So it could be at the trade deadline. It could be a little bit after the start of the season. And of course, as always, when we're doing this live, you can sound off in the live chat and name some of your favorite or best in-season trades that you remember. But Chris G, as always, what we do, I give you the 10, you give me your 10, back and forth. So we're going to start with number 10 of the best in-season trades. What you got, Chris G?
I got Jason Kidd getting traded to the Dallas Mavericks in 2007. Devin Harris, amongst other names. I'm sure they weren't the only ones traded in that trade. But this was a big, important trade for the Mavs because even though Kidd was on the lower, at the back end of his career, still a good point guard that was super essential to that championship team, 2 years later? So yeah. Because they eventually won that championship for the Dallas Mavericks organization, this is why I went with this trade first.
So I got at number 10, this is a controversial one because it didn't result to crap. It didn't result to anything really, but it was one of like the bigger in-season trades in recent memory. Number 10, Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns. Everybody was going crazy for this in 2023. This was like insane. We were like, what? He's going to the Phoenix Suns, the team that just went to the NBA Finals 2 seasons ago. He's going to be playing with Chris Paul and Devin Booker and he's going to be playing with all these guys that went to the what? This is ridiculous. This is going to be guaranteed. They're going to make it to the NBA Finals. So as far as like buzzworthy, I don't think there's been many trades as big as this one. So despite the result not being so good, it led to a first round exit and then not making the playoffs. So the result wasn't that good, but as far as like name value and buzzworthiness and how much coverage this got, it's got to be in my top 10 in season trade. So KD to the Suns at number 10. What is your number 9, Chris G?
This could potentially make its way up the list one day, but for now, I got it at number 9. And it's Tyrese Halliburton getting swapped for Sabonis in 2022.
That is a good one.
It's already produced. It's already produced an Eastern Conference Finals visit and a NBA Finals. And Tyrese is, I think, only 25, or 26 if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, there's still room to grow for that trade, but it's already proved to be one of the better in-season trades.
So I'm already seeing a theme with our list here because I see you're going more on what has resulted in, and I'm going with like how big and how much coverage it really was. So my number 9 is DeMarcus Cousins to the New Orleans Pelicans.
That was a trade. Yeah.
That was a trade right there that everyone went crazy about in 2018 because you have to realize in the 2010, DeMarcus Cousins was like a top 10 center in the NBA.
Top and you 5, placed him.
Yeah, top 5. Yeah, at one point, when he was putting up double doubles with the Sacramento Kings, and then he goes and he gets shifted to the Pelicans, who had Anthony Davis in his prime before he became half man, half a season, or street clothes, whatever you want to call him. Like this was the peak of Anthony Davis when Anthony Davis was a top 5 MVP candidate in 2018, and the fact that they played together, like I gotta give it love. I gotta give that the number 9 on my list here.
They had one game where they both had like 30 and 20. Like we thought they were going to be the next Twin Towers. Like, oh shit, this is the second coming.
Yo, everybody thought like they were going to be this new Twin Towers, this new like best front court. They were for like a couple of seasons, like 2 seasons. They were like the best front court in the NBA, but DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis got stricken by injuries. Anthony Davis, of course, would get traded to the Los Angeles Lakers in the 2019-2020 season. So it didn't work out as well. But for that one season, that season and a half, they had the world buzzing with DeMarcus Cousins on the Pelicans. So what is your number 8 on your list?
Number 8 for me can easily go down in both. This trade can go down in 2 separate lists at the same time. This could be easily one of the best in-season trades of all time and possibly one of the worst in-season trades of all time. And this is Carmelo Anthony getting traded to the New York Knicks in 2011 because we had to give up a fucking arm, leg, a foot. We gave up everything for this man. And I love Melo. It resulted in one of the greatest New York Knicks careers in history, but it didn't result in a ring or any extended playoff success. So for that reason, it's low. And for that reason and how much the Knicks gave up to get Melo, could be one of the worst in season trades too. Just because the Knicks were they were playing really good when they traded all those guys. So I love Melo though. So I'm gonna go with number 8, Melo.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I do have that one higher up on my list.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I had to put that higher up on my list here. So number 8 for me. This is another one. Like, bottom of my list is merely for headlines and buzzworthiness. Like, this is all of these because none of these worked out the way that most people wanted them to. But number 8 for me, James Harden to the Philadelphia 76ers in 2022. That one was huge because he freaking forced his way out of the Brooklyn Nets and this otherworldly trio that they had with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving because he couldn't deal with Kyrie Irving. He wanted to cut on out of here. Kevin Durant still talks about him forcing his way out of that and talks shit to his friend James Harden about that. And for the season and a half that they were together, James Harden and Joel Embiid look like a threat to win the Eastern Conference at the very least. Like they had that series with the Boston Celtics where they pushed them to the brink and stuff like that. They had a couple of seasons where they looked really good throughout the regular season and then went into the playoffs and just bombed the way that Joel Embiid always bombs and the way James Harden always bombs in the playoffs. You just had 2 players that never are able to replicate the success that they have in the regular season in the playoffs. But as far as like buzzworthiness and headlines, this was huge. So I put that at number 8.
No, I was scared. I was like, fuck, now we got to deal with the 76ers too. I thought they were going to make a 3-4 year run of them being elite.
Yeah, but it wasn't meant to be. It just wasn't meant to be. Number 7, Chris G.
All right. This one I got Kyrie Irving getting traded to the Mavs in 2023. Yes. It resulted in a final appearance, and Kyrie's still with the Mavs. So it's like this is another trade that, hey, you never know if the Mavs fully healthy, add another piece or two, become an elite team or something, and this trade goes up the list. But they already got a finals appearance out of it, so I'll take it.
Yeah. I have that very close here on my list. But I went with number 7 for me. It's Jason Kidd to the Dallas Mavericks in 2008 because I felt like that is one of the key moves that they made that basically set them up to win the championship 3 seasons later. So I had to put Jason Kidd going to the Mavs, and this was still kind of at the latter half of his prime years. This is one of his last prime years before he became more of a role player. But him alongside Dirk Nowitzki, a lot of people thought that was going to lead to a championship with the Mavericks, and it eventually did. But a lot of people thought it was going to happen sooner rather than later because it came right after the season that Dirk won the MVP, and they came up short against the San Antonio Spurs. So it was them making a move to get a key point guard to put alongside Dirk Nowitzki to compete with the likes of Tony Parker and Tim Duncan. Unfortunately, there was another major trade in 2008 that stopped them from that for the next couple of seasons, but We'll get into that in a little bit later. And this is why number 6 for me is the aforementioned Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks, because you're absolutely right. It led to a champ. It didn't lead to much that first season where they completely bombed and didn't make the playoffs, but the next season they're in the NBA Finals, and that Kyrie and Luka Doncic in the backcourt, that is up there with the Splash Brothers for the most impressive or greatest backcourt that we've seen in recent memory. Like, they were automatic, like 25 points per game for Kyrie Irving, 30 point. He averaged like 34, 8 and 8 that season. Luka Doncic, that's the best season that he's ever played, probably before this season that he's played in the NBA so far. And they just created magic, made it all the way to the NBA Finals, and they probably would have won if they didn't face one of the deepest teams that's ever been in an NBA Finals. So yeah, Kyrie to the Mavs has to be on this list for sure. But what is your number 6?
So my number 6 is Derek White getting traded from the Spurs to the Celtics, 2022. It gave the Celtics that glue guy that they needed, to allow the other superstars to do their thing. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Once Derek White got on that team, everybody else's efficiency went up, just because he does the little things that helps everybody else play their game. So, and he's still with them, and he was a pivotal part of that championship. So, I'm going with Derek White.
That's a good shout. Good shout right there. I didn't include that on my list, but in retrospect, I probably should have. I have another one that is similar to that was a game changer, like role player that went to a team, but we'll bring that up shortly here. But number 5 for me, this is number 5. Yeah, number 5 for me. I went with you guys. Carmelo Anthony going to the New York Knicks in 2011. Like I said, this is as far as like buzzworthiness, but also this put the Knicks on another level. Like, I thought that the Knicks were playing really well with Amari and Raymond Felton, that pick and roll combination that season. And I still stand by the fact that Melo probably should have waited till the offseason so we could have seen what the Knicks could have done with Amari at the number 1 spot and that pick and roll combination with Raymond Felton, and y'all had to give up way too much to get Carmelo to go there. So, like, yeah, I think he should have waited to the offseason when he became a free agent. But anyway, it happened, and what it produced is probably the best Knicks basketball until the last couple of years. Like, this was when y'all were consistently in the playoffs. Y'all were consistently one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, and Carmelo Anthony will go down as like a top 5, top 10 Knicks player of all time coming off of this trade. So this trade was a big change for Carmelo coming home. And he was, like I said, the only superstar that I can remember in my generation, my 37 years of life, that chose to go to the New York Knicks, that there was all these news coverage and articles about him potentially coming to the Knicks. And then it actually happened. I had to put it high. I had to put it in my top 5.
I mean, listen, I love Melo. I was so excited when he got traded to the Knicks. At that time, I didn't care who they gave up for him. I was ecstatic that Carmelo Anthony was coming to the Knicks. He had a hell of a career with us, and I'm so grateful that he was a New York Knick. But when you look back on that trade, they gave up 56 points per game to get Carmelo Anthony. Danilo Gallinari was averaging 16 points a game. Wilson Chandler was averaging 15. Raymond Felton was averaging 18 and 9 before he got traded. 18 points. He was snubbed from the All-Star game. He was a All-Star that year.
He would have been an All-Star. I think if he stays on the Knicks, he would have been an All-Star, and he probably would have won Most Improved Player that season.
Oh, yeah, and he probably would have not got fat and out of shape. So when they got him the second time around, it fucking took him a while to get his shit together. But I mean, I loved everybody on that team, and it felt like a necessary trade at the time, but I'm still not mad at it. I'm still glad that we had Carmelo Anthony as a Knick.
Yeah. Amari Stoudemire probably would have been top 2, top 3 in MVP voting as well.
He was looking like fucking Pat Ewing, second coming.
It was crazy. Scary. It was scary, yo. Like, he was like 25 games into the season. He was my MVP pick. I remember that. He was my MVP pick that season.
Yeah, he was averaging like 24 and 12 or something like that before Melo came to the Knicks. Well, his numbers are going to go down because Melo takes the ball to be efficient. But still wouldn't. I still would make that trade just either in the off season or early in the season where the value was a little less.
Yeah. Who you got at number 5?
Number 5, I'm going with Aaron Gordon getting traded to the Nuggets in 2021. A kind of another like glue guy that, or just somebody that needed to change the scenery. So then when he went to the Nuggets and joined like this championship ready like culture, his game expanded 5 times more than it was in Orlando, and he was a big part of that championship run. So yeah, I'm going with Aaron Gordon.
And you are absolutely right. I just have him higher. Number 4 for me is Aaron Gordon to the Denver Nuggets in 2021. Like, yo, that trade was a game changer for the Nuggets and a game changer for Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon was mostly seen as an interior threat, a slam dunk champion, a guy that can get down into the low post and kind of score for you. He changed up his game completely playing next to Nikola Jokic, where he became a 3-point specialist, and he was one of the key parts that got them the championship back in 2023. So yeah, Aaron Gordon, that was a key move for the Nuggets for building their franchise and building a franchise that would eventually win the championship 2 years later. So it's got to be Aaron Gordon. And that, like I said, Aaron Gordon, he's a completely different player than what he was in Orlando, and I don't think he would be the player that he is today without that trade to the Nuggets.
No, that was necessary for his career, and it was necessary for the franchise, for the Nuggets to become elite and get that championship.
Yeah. So who do you have at number 4?
All right. Spoiler alert. I have both Gasol brothers on this list, but this one is Marc Gasol getting traded to the Raptors in 2019. Gave the Raptors that rim protector behind the good perimeter defense, OG Kawhi. And I mean, once Gasol got there, he opened up. We forget that both Gasol brothers, but Marc Gasol was a really good passer, and he helped open, and he could shoot a little bit. So he opened up the floor for the rest of that Raptors team. And then they went on that crazy run in the playoffs that ended up winning the championship. So their only championship in franchise history. So I'm going with Marc Gasol.
That's a good shout. I don't have that on my list, but definitely a good shout there. Who is your number 3? Let's start the top 5. Who you got at 3?
Clyde Drexler to the Houston Rockets, 1995. They already had won one championship, but this helped them win the second one. And he was at the end of his career, but he was still pretty effective. I feel like this was more for Clyde than the Houston Rockets franchise. This is good to see one of the greats get a ring.
That's a good one. You got a few that I didn't put on my list because I said before I valued buzzworthiness, and you valued what it resulted in. But this one is the combination of both, probably more than anything on my list. Number 3 for me, Rasheed Wallace to the Detroit Pistons in 2004. Yeah, this was huge because I hated the Portland Trailblazers, but I've always loved Rasheed Wallace. Rasheed Wallace was the bad boy of the NBA of the 2000s, especially early 2000s, with the Portland Trailblazers, with the Jailblazers, in and out of jail, most Jailblazers, most technical fouls of anyone, but no one ever thought that he would win a championship or be on a championship level team or be the key to the team winning the championship. And around that time in the early 2000s, like the Pistons would always make it to like the semifinals or the conference finals, and they would always lose to the team that would go to the NBA finals. Like it would be the Detroit Pistons, it would be the Indiana Pacers that would beat them to go to like the NBA finals or conference finals. But the Rasheed Wallace was a necessary evil for them. And to put him, who's this gritty, tough defender and a guy that can score the ball in the low post, to put him on a team that already had Ben Wallace down low, the defensive player of the year, consistent defensive player of the year, winning back to back to back. You had Chauncey Billups, who was this great scorer and facilitator for the team. Rip Hamilton, who was the great scorer, probably the inventor of what Steph Curry would become as far as running off screens and getting open looks, but except he would do it in the mid-range. And then you had Rasheed Wallace, who can hit it from 15, 18 feet out, who can go in the low post and not only guard the best low post player on the opposite team, but he could score consistently. And that is the key. That trade was the key to them winning the championship in 2004. And there's not a lot of times, like you said, like you mentioned some key role players that got traded and eventually won the championship, or even with like Marc Gasol won the championship later that year. But with Rasheed Wallace, that was a huge player to get, and then they win the championship that same season. That doesn't happen a whole lot. So I had to put it high up on my list here.
Yeah, makes sense. Because at number 2, I have Rasheed Wallace going to the Pistons in 2004. Rasheed Wallace, hands down, one of my favorite players of all time. Because not only will he punch you in the face, but he can score. He plays defense. He hustles. He ended up being a Knick when he was an old man, and I fucking loved it. Ball don't lie. Rasheed Wallace as a Knick gave us some toughness that we haven't seen since the 90s. Like, he was a necessary force on that old ass Knicks team in 2012. But probably the most important trade in maybe Pistons history, because it brought him back to that elite level. He does so much on the floor of what the Pistons needed at the time, because they were a gritty defensive team already. Where they had struggled was kind of opening the floor up a little bit. They had traded Stackhouse prior to it and got, Rip, so they kind of had to model their game around that a little bit and change that up a little bit. So bringing in a guy like Rasheed, opens the floor on the offense. It allows Ben Wallace to bang down low on the boards by himself. It gives you a low post threat with Rasheed. It gives you an outside shooter that's a big that can stretch the floor. Now you got Chauncey. Chauncey could run the one. You got more options. The mid-range is freed up for Rip, so Rip was going crazy once Rasheed got to the team. And then Tayshaun, was a young dude just coming into his own, playing the wing, slashing, hitting the corner three, playing defense. He just completed the team. And then they had a bunch of guys off the bench that just played defense and could give you big buckets when they needed it. So that was the missing piece for that Pistons team, and I'm glad that Rasheed Wallace was able to get a ring.
Absolutely agree with you there. I had it one spot lower. I probably would have also had it at number 2 if it wasn't for last year. Because when you want to talk about big names moving, if you want to talk about game changers and headlines, there is no more shocking in-season trade than number 2, Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. I am sorry. Nothing has created the ripple effect of the Los Angeles Lakers getting Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis and Max Christie. This is just otherworldly. This is a trade no one saw coming. This is a trade that is one of the biggest stories of the last couple of years, and one of the biggest trades you will ever see. It doesn't matter what the results are. Yes, we went to the first round and we got dropped in 5 games. We're only like a 5th seed this season. It does not matter. That changed the whole trajectory of the Los Angeles Lakers, who looked like the next couple of years was going to be back to what we were at the end of Kobe's career. It looked like that before this trade, with LeBron James, who was getting old. He was approaching 40, who was already 40 years old. You had Anthony Davis, who was going to be the best player on the team if LeBron left after the season. And what was that going to be for us with his injury history and being half man, half a season, and being street clothes the way he was? It looked like a very depressing next couple of years. And then we get one of the top 3, top 4 players in the NBA, and it totally changed the Los Angeles Lakers. It totally changed the Dallas Mavericks. Nico Harrison lost his job off that trade. They got Cooper Flagg off that trade and improved their trajectory for the next couple of years in the process. So, it has to be Luka Doncic in my top 2. When you talk about name value, when you talk about game changers and headlines, it don't get any bigger than Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, this is one of those trades that got the potential to move on my list for sure, right? It just depends on the success of the Lakers. Hopefully, Luka can get them to the promised land.
Yeah. I hope he can. I hope we see an NBA Finals in the next couple of years, but as far as like I said, buzzworthiness, name value, the game changing throughout the NBA, the ripple effect that it has, there's not any bigger than Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. But you teased it before. And yes, we have the same number one like we did for the greatest players of all time. We had different number ones for greatest team of all time, but we're back to being on the same page. Number one for me is another Laker trade, and it's the Laker trade that I most fondly remember. Pau Gasol to the Los Angeles Lakers. What is your number one?
It is the same. It's Paul Gasol getting traded to the Lakers. Oh wait, first of all, this trade wasn't even supposed to happen. Chris Paul was supposed to go to the Lakers. This trade doesn't happen if Chris Paul gets traded to the Lakers.
That was a few years later. That was a few years
was
later. Yeah, that was in 2011.
So who was the trade they paid? Oh, was that when they got Dwight then instead?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Because I know. All right. My bad. Because I knew one of those trades wasn't supposed to happen. All right. So the Paul Gasol trade was supposed to happen. He got traded for his brother.
It really wasn't supposed to happen because we traded him for Kwame Brown. Like the return that, like, luckily Marc Gasol becomes Marc Gasol, but Marc Gasol
got traded for his brother.
was a guy who was not playing for the Lakers. He got drafted, I think, that same season, and he wasn't playing for the Lakers, so they didn't know what they were getting.
Yeah. They drafted his rights because he didn't even come to the league yet.
Yeah.
I mean, they traded his rights because he didn't join the league yet. It was a fleece. The Lakers fleece everybody. I don't know what kind of mojo they got going on in these trade circles, but they fleece everybody in these trades. At first it was Divock for fucking Kobe. We're getting Luka for fucking Max Christie, and then fucking Paul for Kwame Brown. Like, that's crazy. But Paul Gasol, very instrumental in those 3 in a row championships. Helped bring 2 of those championships. People sleep on how good Gasol was on the Memphis Grizzlies. So he is a guy that absolutely deserves to be part of a winning culture and contribute to a championship team. And this revitalized Kobe's legacy. This helped, put Kobe back into that. You don't need Shaq. You're a fucking one-of-a-kind player. Mamba mentality, all that shit. It's contributed with the help of guys like Paul Gasol, who were very fond of Kobe. Him and Kobe had a very good relationship, and they brought out the best in each other. So Paul Gasol definitely deserves to be on this list.
Yeah, Paul Gasol, that totally changed the Lakers, and this was the trade that they really needed to keep Kobe, because Kobe was very disgruntled coming off of the 2 losses to the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs in 2006 and 2007. He was thinking about leaving the Lakers in the offseason of 2007.
He was going to the Knicks.
He was thinking about leaving in that offseason, but they was like, trust us, we're gonna make a move. We're gonna get rid of Smith Parker. Don't worry. We'll get rid of Kwame Brown. Don't worry. And then they made this trade in the season. I think this was like in January of 2008. They made that trade, and it totally changed. We go to the NBA Finals that season. We run into the Big 3 in Boston, and we lose out because Paul Pierce had to take a dump in Game 1, and that totally changed the momentum of that game. And then we never recovered. But then we win the championship in 2009 with Pau Gasol being clearly the second best player on the team. Then the 2010 run, where arguably he was the best player on the court in Game 7 of the 2010 NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics, when we got our revenge and won that series. And despite Pau Gasol not being like a perennial top 75 of all time, when he was on the Memphis Grizzlies, he was a 20-10 guy consistently. He goes to the Lakers and he's an 18-9 guy. He playing next to Kobe Bryant, and he can really kind of say with confidence, he is the greatest teammate that Kobe Bryant ever had. There wasn't any downside. Like, you could say Shaq was the best player that Kobe ever played with, but as far as being a teammate, there was a downside to that. There was a downside. They hated each other. They had 2 different mindsets. Kobe was about working hard, being the first in the gym and the last one out, and Shaq was about partying during the off season and getting surgery when the season starts instead of during the off season, like that type of stuff. Pau Gasol sacrificed so much to be with Kobe Bryant, to be that great number 2 to Kobe Bryant and guide us to 2 championship wins. You can't even say into words and quantify the importance that Pau Gasol is to the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the great Lakers players, and like I said, the greatest teammate Kobe Bryant ever had, to the point that after Kobe's passing, he's been like an uncle to that family. He's been a support system for that family that really needed it after the passing of Gigi and Kobe in 2020. So you can't, like, it's so important, and it's such a big part of Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers legacy. You got to give it to Pau Gasol for the best in-season trade in NBA history.
Yep, no argument here.